I'm Laura, and it's great to be with you all here again. Today we're going through the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, verses 18 to 26. Now, in this section, the author or preacher is talking about the vanity of toil. Now, although the word toil is not a word that we often use now in the present, it is a word that is defined as work or labor or job, right? So I invite you to look at this passage with me about the vanity of toil. So the first thing that we encounter as we begin to study this section is that the preacher starts out with quite the bold statement. And he starts it by saying, I hated all of my toil in which I toil under the sun. Now, to me, right, or many of us perhaps are thinking about this, I start thinking maybe this was written by a lazy person, right? Or maybe this person just didn't like working. But actually, as we start carefully examining the rest of the passage, we come to the realization of two things, right? We come to see, number one, that this is definitely not the case, right? And that the author, in fact, is very successful. He has done very well for himself. And number two, also, that there's greater meaning to be derived from what he's trying to say, right? So as we look at the rest of the passage, we start thinking, right? So what is it that he's trying to say by the vanity? The toil is vanity, right? The toil is vanity. Now, looking at our culture and seeing how our culture works and how much emphasis is placed on our status and our success, right? We look at that. And in fact, if you think about it, the first thing that a lot of people ask you when they first meet you, is what do you do for a living, right? Or something along those lines. Now, it comes to show you how much we measure our value and our personal worth based on what is in our bank accounts rather than really taking a look at what is in our spiritual accounts, right? So now in verses 18 and 19, the preacher tells us that work cannot be the source which provides meaning and significance in life. It cannot, right? Furthermore, he says that apart from God, work is nothing but a chore. And it just leads to emptiness, unsatisfaction, and that work, although for many is fulfilling, it cannot supply the answer to meaning and satisfaction apart from God, right? So then we look at verses 20 to 23, in which the author tells us why work alone or work apart from a living relationship with God is always going to lead to despair, right? So he says, for all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This also is vanity, right? So in this section, he's explaining that the fruit of his labor has not served to fulfill his deepest yearnings and desires as a human being, right? So at this point, I just want to offer a simple warning. Right, the vanity of toil is not meant for us to become lazy or quit our jobs tomorrow, or but rather it serves to show us that our work is intended for a greater purpose, right? So the author finally emphasizes this in verses 24 to 26. Now, in these verses, he tells us about the kind of work that really satisfies, right? So really, he's telling us about how work, goes from being pointless or just an empty everyday activity to becoming a great blessing. This is right where the turning point happens, right here in verse 24. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God, right? So the preacher says that in relationship with God, the work can never supply the meaning of life apart from him. It does become a great blessing in him and with him and through him, right? So even as you sit and you enjoy your labor, right? He says in verses 24 and 25 that this also is from the hand of God. So now let's think about this again, right? From the hand of God, meaning that it doesn't come from having the right job, the right company, or the right coworkers, or from making a lot of money. Everything is a gift of God, God gives the gift of our ability to enjoy labor in this life. Now, simply put, the author helps us to understand that as Christians, we approach work and labor not hoping for it to define us or bring significance to our lives, but rather we approach labor knowing that in Jesus there is no meaningless work, and there is no unimportant labor, and we know that all is seen, all is noted, and all is rewarded, and all is blessed in and by Him, because we work not for our earthly masters, but for our God who is in heaven. Now, contrary to this, outside of Jesus, there is no blessing, there is no meaning, there is no satisfaction, there is no reward, which leads to emptiness and futility, which is what our author found out, right? So after writing this, our preacher understood that even though work is a great thing, right? If it's outside of God, it means nothing. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I hope you all have a great day.